Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of A Gardener's Journey Homestead. I'm Barbara, and today I wanted to show you about me pruning tomatoes and talk to you about tomatoes. And this is the disclaimer. I'm not an expert on tomatoes, but I'm going to share with you my experiences over last year and this year, what I've done differently this year and what I'm seeing differently with my tomatoes this year. So kind of as a backdrop, I planted tomatoes for the first time last year. I planted them in the high tunnel, which is where I am right now. And I got some yield, but I wouldn't say for the amount of tomatoes I planted that I got tons of yield. I definitely encountered, ooh, that's real life, insect right in my face. I definitely encountered a lot of pest damage in the beginning, and then towards the end, the pest damage was hornworms. At first, it was just other pest damage. But the second part was hornworms. I mean, they almost took my stuff out. So I didn't get a big yield, but I didn't prune either. And so there's philosophies about to prune or not to prune. So this year, I've tried pruning, and so far I like it. And I've done pruning one because I wanted to try, because I didn't do it last year. So again, if you try something that didn't work, try something different, right? But then also, it's much easier for me to manage when they're pruned versus last year. I just feel like they were wild. They were everywhere. And in one of the rows, we couldn't even get behind it. It was just all growing together. And so my brain and how I function probably 90% of the time is pretty organized. And so I like for my garden to be organized. Now, it's not perfect. It's not organized. Y'all seen trash and stuff. I don't have it set up the way that I ideally would want it, but it does make it easier for me to have them pruned. So I wanted to kind of just walk you through, because I need to prune today some more, but I want to walk you through what I did. And just show you, and if it helps you, that is great. So here's the rule of thumb when it comes to pruning is, obviously if you prune, you're gonna get less tomatoes, bigger fruit. If you don't prune, then you're gonna get more tomatoes, smaller fruit. That's generally the rule of thumb, right? So just know when you prune, it's gonna yield less fruit. But the goal, hopefully, is that you get bigger fruit as well as disease-free and fruit that looks really, really pretty, okay? So I have tomatoes in the high tunnel in here. Then I also have them outside in the outside garden. So let's go, since we're already in the tunnel, let's go over to the high tunnel, to the row where the tomatoes are, and I'm going to show you how they still need to be pruned some more. And again, I did a good pruning. Ideally, you want to kind of prune every week or so, but again, I haven't been able to keep up with that, but they're just now like starting to get a little bit of wild. And so I want to kind of prune again. I thought I would take you with me. So let's go. So you can kind of see here, and obviously this is a weed right there that I just need to pull up, but you can see here that this is pruned pretty decently, meaning there's no lower leaves like touching the ground. I am going to come up a little bit more and get some of those lower leaves there. You can see here, let me back up so you can see there. Let me see if I can get you a good angle. But let me walk you. You can see here I have some yellowing, so I'm going to take the dead leaves off of this one. But you can see at the very bottom I have good airflow except that one branch. So I'm going to take that branch off, and then you can see down here, this really needs to be pruned because it's laying all on the ground, right? So I'm gonna take off some of those lower leaves. So when it comes to pruning, you know, you wanna get you some good pruners or whatever, something that's sharp. And so basically what I've done to prune is I'm taking off the lower leaves, so that way there's good airflow at the bottom, and so that there's no branches touching the ground. So when you're watering, obviously the ideal way to water your plants, especially tomatoes, is to water at the base and not to like spray it and water it at the leaves, right? That's ideal. And some of us are not set up ideal because right now I don't have drip tape down. So we're spraying in the tunnel to water. So obviously, yes, some of the leaves get wet, but ideally you want to water at the base of the plant so that your leaves are not getting wet. But if the leaves are touching the ground and they get wet, then that's where the disease starts to come in. That's where the pest damage starts to get really, really high. And so you want to kind of get rid of all of those lower leaves that are touching the ground so that you have really, really good airflow. So that's one thing. The other thing is some people use what they call a 2-liter system, Leader. For the longest, I kept thinking they were saying liter, like a 2-liter bottle of Coke or something, but 2-liter, where you can have 2 liters going up. I didn't do that this time just because, again, I was new at it and I didn't quite know how to accomplish that. But what I have tried to do is just to use the one main stem and then cut the lower leaves off that main stem. And then, just kind of keep going up as the plant grows, right? So I still have side shoots and all of that. So it's not a perfect 1-liter or 2-liter system, but I'm just doing the best that I can with what I have and how I've already started. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, this is the row that I just showed you that's already been established. It's been in the ground the longest, but then I have another row over here that is newer. So it's just starting to grow. And so I need to stake it and prune it as well. So I'm going to get started on this row first and getting rid of some of the yellow leaves and the lower leaves and all of that. It should go pretty quick, and then we'll go to the next row. Okay, I got this first row done and the tomatoes need a little TLC. So I'm going to actually fertilize this row too. I'm seeing some yellowing on a few of the plants, and it's probably been probably a month since I fertilized. I've been trying to do the tomatoes on some specific fertilization once a month. And again, all you tomato experts, put it down below if you're doing yours more than that, or if I should do it more than that. But I have fertilized twice, I think, when I first put them in the ground, and then it's probably been at least 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I'm going to go ahead and fertilize again. But first, let's go to the next row. And then before I do that, also a couple of things that I did mention before was I'm also pruning the sucker. So the suckers is where the stem goes into that V shape. It's that part that's in between. So I'm also pruning those as I see them. And I will tell you, if you can keep on top of this and do it on a regular basis, it makes it much easier. So because it's been a few weeks since I pruned, it's kind of, some of them are all tangled up, and I think I accidentally cut the wrong stem on one of them. Time will tell, but that's part of it, right? But it makes it easier if you kind of keep up and do it on a regular basis. So that way you can know what's what and it doesn't get out of hand. That's the name of the game, right? So I took off the lower leaves. Some of these need to be restaked. Remember, ideally what I wanted to do was I was going to hang some PVC pipe at the top and then string them up. We just haven't, y'all know my answer every time. We just hadn't had time to do it. It's so much to say grace over. And so again, we prioritize, we react to whatever is pressing at the time. So it hasn't been done yet. And so I've been using these garden stakes. And so some of them are like 6-foot stakes, but then some of them are 4-foot stakes, and I need to replace it with taller stakes because the plant has gotten too big, it's laying down and all that. So I can't fix that part with pruning. I gotta restake it and reclip it, right? So again, I'm just showing you some things that I've done to cause you to think, if you haven't done that, some help with your tomatoes and all of that. It's by no means perfect, but I can already tell you that it's better than it was last year. And that's what we're all about on this channel, right? Is making progress, is keeping the journey going and making progress. My tomatoes, I have more tomatoes. Less of them are diseased, right? And so they're just not starting to come in. And so they already look better than they did before. And I already obviously have more than I did before. So let's go to the next row and I'm gonna show you that one. Okay, so you can see this one. This is what it looks like when it hasn't been pruned at all. So literally, y'all, this is one that I put in the ground probably about a month ago. It was growing slow. I went out of town twice, back to back. When I came back, it was like this. So you see I have the little yellow stake there, but this hasn't been pruned at all because it just really started growing. So I'm going to prune this and reclip it. And of course, I'm going to need a bigger stake for this because that's going to be too short. Also, you can see the tomatoes over here. They're just now getting going, so it'll be easy to prune these. Again, I'm going to take off those lower leaves, right? And then we'll start to stake them as well. But you can see how that's going to be a much easier job than that right there. So we're going to get busy working on this. I think I'll start with the easy first and go from there. Y'all, it's hot out here. So it's actually the next day. If you notice that I have on a different shirt. It's hot. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna fertilize the tomatoes. I have them all stood up. I ran out of stakes that I needed, but I think I only have like 3 or 4 left that need to be staked. And right now they're not leaning over, so it's all good. But I'm gonna fertilize the tomatoes. I'm using calcium nitrate. I got it from Haas Tools, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 1500. So it's a high form of nitrogen and calcium, and that's supposed to help prevent blossom end rot on tomatoes and disease and things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and fertilize the tomatoes. I just have it in one of my seed. This is what it looks like. Have it in one of my seed things just because I didn't want to lug the big bag around because I kind of bought it in a big bag. So I'm going to do that, and we're going to water it in, and then we will be done giving our tomatoes some TLC. Okay, everybody, look at these tomatoes. These are the sun golds. Look, let's see if I can get you. There you go. You can see, I just picked a handful. I just picked a handful so that I can have them with my salad today for lunch because I'm out. Not out, but out in the house. So there's plenty out here. So I pick me some of these. I'm gonna take these in. So y'all, we pruned the tomatoes, we staked some tomatoes and clipped them up, and we also fertilized, giving the tomatoes some TLC. So again, I hope that these tips helped you. If you're not taking care of your tomatoes, take care of your tomatoes, right? And again, this is a new journey for me because last year I didn't do any of this, none of it. And so I'm curious to see what difference it makes. And I think I'm already seeing the difference, that things are going really, really well. So as you know, I just did the high tunnel. I still have a whole garden over here to do, but I didn't want to do that for the video for the sake of it being too long. So I'm going to do the exact same thing outside in the garden, hopefully later this evening. And hopefully my tomatoes will be well on their way to producing lots and lots of great harvests over the rest of the summer. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to my channel, share it on your social media, and remember, gardening is a journey. Let's grow together.